Hello, dear listeners. Welcome to the ECM podcast. I'm Caroline Fontagneux, and I'm very happy to host this series that will take you behind the scenes of new music on ECM Records. In this new episode, I'm meeting over Zoom with Norwegian drummer, composer, and producer Thomas Strønen to discuss his latest ECM album, Relations, a collaborative project with Craig Taborn, Chris Potter, Sinikka Langeland, and Jorge Rossy, produced by Manfred Eicher. We talked about promises, distance, sounds, and so much more. So we're here to celebrate the release of this album of yours, Thomas Strønen, on ECM Relations.
Yes.
Congrats.
Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to it.
It's always a celebration, right? When we're releasing an album. It's good news.
Yes.
It's been a long time in the making.
It has been years, and I think I've always been lucky because whenever I've recorded with Manfred, sometimes the record has been out just a few weeks after the recording, and sometimes you wait for a year. But this time it was a long labor, so I'm very relieved that it's coming out.
Yeah, it was about time, but it's a very exciting project. And obviously, we really need to talk about the context of this recording because it's so specific, so special, so very unique. It's a great story. So can you share it with us? It was 2018.
Yes.
You were in the studio in Lugano with Matalena and Naomi Tanaka to record Bayou that we released in 2021, I think.
Yes, that's right.
And then what happened?
Well, I was surprised. We finished the recording very quickly. The normal ECM recipe would be to spend 2 days recording and then 1 day mixing. With this trio, we just played improvised music. And I think when it came to lunch the first day, Manfred said, "We have a record. Let's go and eat and we'll mix the record after lunch."
Wow.
And so we did. Also spending a couple of hours the next day to work on the mix and the selection as well. And by the end of the second day, everything was done. Manfred changed his flight to fly back the next day. And then we went out and had a nice dinner, celebrating, having a glass of wine. And we were all very happy. I was very relaxed until he said, "The studio is free tomorrow. So if you want to go back and record something, feel free."
Wait.
And I thought, okay.
I'm stopping you here because
Okay.
That's when this happened. But I just want to go back to what you were saying about the recording of Bayou. Is it something exciting when we see that everything is flowing and going so fast? Or is there a frustrating part in it where it's just like, oh no, like I really wanted to spend more time on this, or maybe we should record another one, or like where's the balance on? Because it's always hard to finish a recording, to be like, okay, we got it.
Yeah.
Was it easier or was it more frustrating? How was it?
No, it's funny you say that because I remember it as quite frustrating because I felt we just warmed up. You know, it's like we start playing, improvising, and we feel that, okay, now we have a nice vibe and things are starting to happen. It's a nice flow. Let's continue. And then you get stopped. And so we wanted to continue, and we actually did. After lunch, we played a bit more. And Manfred would just say, "We already have this. You know, you've started to repeat yourself. So this was better the first time you did it." I think we were looking for slightly different things because we wanted to cultivate something we'd worked on in this trio for a few years. And he liked that we weren't absolutely sure where we were going, and we were playing in this amazing room with loads of reverb. You have to play quite quiet as a drummer, especially. And he could see or sense that we were being challenged and had to think in a new way. And I think that was what he was after, that delicate touch, a bit of uncertainty where things were heading. And so it's a very fragile, very open, minimalistic, and special recording. And once we got safe, we started doing the usual things, you know, and he wasn't interested in that. So we just had to trust him and go with what he said.
once again, that was one of those moments, and a lot of ECM artists talk about that, like a moment where Manfred Eicher is being a producer for real.
Yes.
Like he's
Yes.
giving a direction, or he's part of the band, really, with saying like
Yes.
a moment where it's just like, no, we have what we need.
But I have to add as well, it was a very joyful experience, even though the music, it might sound sad and mellow. It was a really nice experience, and he was so happy about the music and the process. So it was, the frustration was just that, yeah, we wanted to do more, as you noticed.
So you're at that bar, you're having a nice glass of white wine.
Yes.
Manfred tells you, okay, well, the room is available tomorrow, so go ahead and have fun.
Yeah, all chaos started because I thought I wasn't prepared for doing anything solo at all. So I immediately quit drinking, and I just had to go back to my hotel, sat in my room thinking, making notes. I have been thinking about making a solo record, because this was the initial plan, I have to say. The plan wasn't to make a record with you. The plan was to make a solo record, which was what he asked for. And I made loads of notes of things I could use as inspiration, and didn't sleep well that night. I had a long run in the morning and tried to clear my head, and came back to a big empty hall on my own.
How does one get ready for a percussion drums solo recording? I mean, did you have stuff written, or that was just like directions, vibes, ideas?
No, I had nothing written, and I would say the things I'd written down was very vague. It was notes saying like a gong piece, brushes, it was so open, so wide. There were no scores for that recording. And I think, for a piano player, the big dream must be to put out a solo record on ECM like the greats of Paul Bley and Keith Jarrett. And I guess as a drummer, I could say the same. But to be honest, I would rather listen to a solo piano record than solo drums. But I convinced myself that it could be interesting to.
It's fine. Your drumming is musical enough to be completely, completely digestible. So we need to talk about the room, obviously, a bit later, because it's so special in Lugano. But
Yes.
you're in this room, you spend the whole day recording just paintings and ideas and tracks, following Manfred Eicher's advice and taking advantage of this room and all the drums. Then what happened? You listened back and you were like, something's missing, or did you send it to Manfred, or?
Yeah, I can say something about the process in the studio as well before we move on, that I made some choices while on stage, which was, I thought that I've been giving this chance to do something different from when I normally play. So I think I wanted to challenge the way I normally play the drums. And when playing improvised music, like I just done with Marte and Ayumi, it's tempting to search for a common ground and some safe space where you feel that you connect with the other musicians. And on this very day, I wanted to confront myself and make the music less polite. And the fact that there was a big orchestra that normally rehearse in this wonderful room. The drummers had a lot of percussion in the basement, which I was allowed to use. And I've always been drawn to the more classical approach of drumming, with a sort of accurate touch and focus on timbre sounds and extended sounds of the drum sets. So I think on this recording, that was my approach to it. And just before we started talking, I was just listening to a couple of tracks, because I haven't honestly been listening to that music for a long time. And I wrote down, like, if I should describe my way of thinking, I think it was somewhere between a samurai and a jazz musician who at early age drowned in the texture ball. So I was trying to play very direct, honest, and not focus so much on the actual drumming, and try to play things the right way, but more focusing on forms and time and space. It's a bit like being in a temple with many preferred sounds and trying to choose wisely, not to lose attention by playing too many sounds or too many beats at the same time. I don't know how much music I had. I think it was around 4 hours of music. So I actually spent 2 years listening through the music, and it was just too much to take in. And then slowly I started to get a feel of what it could be. And I started to gather like a small compilation of something I felt had a nice form and could tell a story. And while listening to it, I don't know, maybe it was the process that I listened too much, but I felt the need for someone else to put it in a different context. I felt it would be nice to listen to how other people could change my narrative of the music I had played. And it wasn't a decision I had, but it was a thought that started to grow within. So I was having a meeting with Manfred and sitting in his office, and we were listening through things. I could have released a solo record, but I suggested to him, that what if we invited someone to play on this, like have some guests on top of it.
Yeah.
And that's not very ECM-ish to do, I would
But
say.
also, I mean, I don't know, because there's ECM also has a huge history of having people meeting through ECM and then record
Yes,
things. So,
absolutely.
it really kind of is ECM, but I also think that it requires a lot of humility and a lot of generosity to decide that something that is initially a moment and a moment alone, just to allow someone to have a new look at it, a new perspective on it, and just like maybe turn the story a little bit of this track, of this moment, of this feeling. It requires a lot of humility, and I'm not surprised that it needed that time also to be processed, because it's a whole intellectual process, I'm sure, that you went through.
Absolutely. And also that it wasn't like I had it all planned before I went into the studio. The only thing I knew was that I wanted to challenge myself, in the playing, and challenge the way I could record something.
But when
And,
you started thinking about maybe I can invite someone in,
mhm.
did you have one person in mind, or just the idea of having someone, or like who came up with this list of 4 incredible artists?
Yeah. No, actually, this was the funny thing was that I was a bit afraid actually to suggest this for Manfred, because I thought, he'd given me this opportunity to do something, and I wanted to appreciate that and value that. And I brought it up, and he immediately liked it, and he brought pen and paper and said, let's make a list. And we started saying names, and the list, just like you can imagine, there's so many amazing musicians within all genres and from everywhere. So after we had 30 names or something, and he said, let's make a premise, and the premise would be that you've never played with these musicians before. And so this was, now I play on Sinikka's album Wind and Sun, but this was before we'd
That was
even played
before
together.
Wind
This
and
was
Sun. Yes,
Yes, this was before. And I thought, okay. And then you kill quite a few darlings, because I really love the people I play with. I'd love to have them on my recording, but I liked the premise, and we did that, which made this list shorter, but still many names. And then we looked at what the various musicians could offer to the recording, and made sure that they all would have different qualities, and coming from different areas of the music fields, and having different approaches probably to how they played with the existing tracks. And he came up with some names, I came up with some names. Like he suggested Jorge Rossy, and said to me that I love his drumming, you know, and I know him a bit. He's a beautiful person, and he's a great vibe player. He's also a trumpet player. He plays everything. And Manfred had just recorded with him in Lugano, and he said he's a tremendous piano player. You know, he should play piano on this. So we decided, okay, let's ask him then. And I've just heard Sinikka play a solo concert in Romania. So I said, Sinikka could be, that's something different. And then he suggested Chris Potter, because he's played in all kinds of settings, but nothing like this, I think. So he wanted to both challenge him and also the setting, the concept, because the variety of people and where they come from is quite big, and there could be a challenge to make it sound like one piece, which was something he liked, that this could be challenging. And both of us talked about Craig, that he would be fantastic. So I asked these people, and it was in a special time, because then COVID started and it was lockdown, and it was actually hard for some people to record. Like for Craig, the studios in New York were closed, and he borrowed a friend's house and had someone put up microphones and record it while the house was empty, you know, things like that. And you know, they were all so generous and positive to the project. And they all had like very different approaches to how they dealt with the music. So while some learned the pieces by heart and made their own, you know, spontaneous compositions that merge into mine, others would just press record and play as they heard the piece for the first time.
Your relationship with ECM is very special, because in the last 20 years, I think the first recording was with Parish, right? That was in
Yes.
Yeah, exactly 20 years ago, actually. The fact that you recorded this very project in this very, very specific way with Manfred Eicher is just another story of all those recordings that you went through with Manfred Eicher, with ECM. How would you describe your relationship with this label?
Oh, it's very, very special. And my relationship with everyone at the office, you know, I say to Helga, who works at the office, who picks up the phone, that I speak more with Helga than my own mother, you know. And it really feels like family, and I feel so well taken care of. And I met Manfred by accident after playing a concert with Bobo Stensson in a church in Oslo, and that was with Parish. And he came backstage and said, "Whose band is this?" You know, and said he wanted to make a recording. And I always felt that I can be honest with him, and he's always been honest to me, and he's always been positive to my project, yet also critical. You know, he's never afraid of speaking his mind, which I like a lot. And I come from my mother is German, you know, so I'm used to people being direct, and I deal with that very easily. I kind of can relate to that and like it. You know, it's always been very positive to work with Manfred in the studio. You know, he always have great ideas on form and textures, on compositions, on playing, and is also open to us not agreeing. You know, sometimes I disagree with things he say, and he's open to that as well. And he has an incredible memory and remembers things we played years ago when we talk about, and he can still reflect on episodes. And while I've just like done this fair amount of recordings, he's done hundreds between every time we record, you know. So it's I would say it's very special.
Thomas Strønen about his latest ECM album, Relations. Thank you for joining, choosing and listening to our ECM podcast. I'm Caroline Fontagneux, and I look forward to sharing more music with you in the next episode.